To start making the Just Act Natural characters, I of course start by making the tan. And, of course, the tan is the most important part with the characters specifically, but this is not going to be the characters, because now that it's the summer, I can finally make bigger projects more consistently. I first start by cutting out 6 equal segments for the head, leaving a little bit extra for the arms and legs. I then roll those 6 equal segments into balls, and then cut it apart 5 white cylinders for the bodies, because I want one of them to not be a white outfit. I then stick it to the head, and then I repeat that over about 5 more times. And now that that's done, I can finally add the ties to 4 of these outfits, the ties just being a tie kind of shaped worm with a little piece of clay on the top that gets blended in kind of. And that just gets repeated about 4 more times until all of the suits are tied. And then I add in the thingies. I forgot the name and I'm not going to look it up. So I'm just going to call them thingies. Collars. The shirt collars. To all 4 of them as well. Remember the name. So, now that you have all the collars and the ties, I mess up the shirt a little bit. I make it imperfect, because the art style of Just Act Natural and an element of why I like it is because it doesn't have perfect shapes. All of the shapes are imperfect, and they're messed up a little bit. I then do the same messing up to the head. After that, I do it again, except for on 2 of them, I just do the front because the back and sides are going to be covered by a sheet of blue, which I make here. Now that blue is made, I make a flat sheet and attach it to the sides and back of 2 of the collared shirts, leaving the other 2 collared shirts how they are right now. Once this is done, then, well, I messed that up as well, because nothing is safe. And then, with everything else, I mess up the heads. Now, I'm going to make a somewhat chef outfit. So I add a little piece in the front, mess it all up, then make it a little bit less messy, and then I make a knot, 2 loops, and then I add a worm around the side of the body, and then I add the 2 loops and a ball of black clay to the front in order to make a knot. Because this is an outfit I saw in the game, so I wanted to recreate it. Then I add the head again, mess it up a little bit, and I add a very thin blue cylinder to the body of the 6th person. And then I make a worm, cover 2 worms in the same lighter blue clay, and then, once I have the first 2 layers of that, out of the 3 total layers, I make a darker blue. Then with this darker blue, I also turn it into a worm and put it on the 3rd level, making sure that all of them have a gap at a specific part at the front. Then I widen that gap and then push the 2 sides back together in order to make it more consistent. Now that that's done, I can add all of the arms and legs. The arms and legs just being a pretty consistent size of worm. Now that I have all of the arms and legs, I get to just stick them on. Except with this, I didn't really mess them up as much. I did for the first 3, but halfway through I realized it wasn't really worth the effort and didn't really, kind of looked better if I didn't really mess it up. So this just gets added to all of them. 2 arms on the sides and then 2 on the bottom. Then I add in the eyes to all of them. It's just 2 eyes that just kind of get smushed in. It's not really too complex, but for some reason I'm still showing it 6 times, even if the other 5 of them are faster. Now I just add in the 2 small black pupils on all of them. And then I add in the mouths, which is just a line of black clay, just a thin worm, right below the eyes, but still just right below the pupils. Now, I start adding in the head accessories and hairs. To start, I make a hat, which is just a cylinder of clay, and then the brim of the hat that gets blended into the cylinder of clay, and then gets pressed into the person's head. Then I add in a worm of light brown clay around the brim of the hat, cut it to the proper size, blend it into the rest of the hat, except I didn't do this too particularly well, but probably could have done it better. And then I add a darker sheet of brown around the base of the hat, between the cylinder and the brim. Then I push it in and start up working on the next hair, which is just kind of spiky hair. This, I make a sheet of the clay, place it around the head. This is pretty consistent, and then I just start adding spikes around where the spikes are present in the normal haircut, since I'm basing all of these off of actual skins in the game. I watched a YouTube video to make sure that they were there, because I don't actually own the game. These all get blended into the blonde part specifically, not the skin, because why? And then, once it's done, I get to move on to another haircut. A guy with a comb over, because I felt like it. This is just a worm of clay that gets smushed downwards, and then 2 thin worms of clay over the top bald part. Then, I once again go back to a flat piece of clay to make the Morty haircut, except this time it's a little bit different. I add 2 balls of clay to the back of the hair, and then I add a first spike that gets blended in pretty well, about a little bit from the actual hairline, and then 1 spike worm thingy on the actual hairline that gets blended in a little bit less. Then I have black clay, same way as the other 2 times I've done it, with a flat sheet over the head, except this time, once again, first I start with something different, which is just a big worm of clay that gets completely blended in over the front to give the guy a bowl cut, and then the similar way which I was talking about earlier, the 2 balls that get blended in on the back for the little thingy. After that, all that's left is to make a chef hat. First I make a cylinder, then I make a flattened circle, and then I just make a bunch of indents until it looks like a chef hat. So, once I pinch all of the little gashes to make it look even more like a chef's hat, the characters are really done. Of course, because I can do more now, I am making a base and a cannon as well. So to start, I make a bunch of base color, and then I make a bunch of brown. And then I individually make a bunch of circles and place them in a variety of spots across the base. Except this has to have enough room for all 6 people. After that, I make a bunch of white squares. 4 to be exact, except because I ended up splitting, it's actually just kind of like 8 squares, except a little bit smaller. Then I make 4 black squares. I'm making a finish line, checkerboard pattern with the black and white. This means that they alternate and don't touch, and the same colors don't go at the same spots. Except this fell a little bit, so I cut it in the middle, swapped it around, and made a few more squares. After that, I cover some brown clay with some wire with brown clay and stick it into the checkerboard flag in order to give it some actual structure when it's just kind of standing up there and it's a lot harder to break. After that, I add some white balls around the feet of the players in order to give them footsteps, some smoke trails of their footsteps. Of course, this guy is not in the game anymore, so he's upside down because I felt like it. And then I just repeat this over, adding a few in the front to make sure that it's a little bit more stable than it would be otherwise. And then I just keep doing this again and again until I get all 6 players on there. As you can tell by off on the sides, there are 2 arms because 2 of the arms fell out. I just use glue later. So once I have all of the trails around and, the front also done, I continue onward because I still have another person to set down, except this guy's going right next to the guy who is not doing too hot. And with that, I'm on to the cannon. Start making the cannon, I make the plats that the cannon is on top of. I just have 2 circles of white clay, and I just smush them, and then I smush them together, and then I have a big thing of brown that I place on the bottom to actually make it stand up. And then I start making the cannon out of a light gray clay, add a little thingy on the back, push a bowl of the cannon, like the actual cannon part, with a ball stylus that's decently thick, but not the largest that I have. Put a little sheet of brown in there. Do the same thing again so that the black is sticking on there. And then I add a sheet of brown on the bottom because that seems like the design of the game. I couldn't really get a good image of the actual cannon, like the basic cannon. You can find other ones, but like I wasn't having an easy time, so might have to remake it in the future, but doesn't really matter right now. Just added what looked to be the colors that were accurate. And then with that, I place it onto the clouds in the base, finish it off, and it is done and ready to be glued to fix all of the mistakes that I made and also add the flag.